And now it's time for Guerilla Roundup. They'll let you know what happened overnight when things transpire whilst you sleep. Right there in the loop you keep.
Well, welcome. Today was the fifth, and it turned out to be final day of the World Test Championship final between India and Australia at the Oval, under almost cloudless skies. And I'm very pleased to be joined once again by the venerable Al Hotchkiss up there in the wheel. Welcome, Al.
Thanks, Jess, for having me.
So to start off with, I'll just summarise where we went today. India started the day with some faint hope of getting somewhere. They were 164 for 3, chasing a target of 444 to win. But Virat Kohli and Rahane had batted very nicely yesterday evening, so there was some hope. And for the first half hour, it was going very nicely, but an over from Scott Boland changed everything. I think it was the third ball. There was an appeal for caught behind, and Labuschagne was sure it was out, so they reviewed it, but it wasn't. And then 2 balls later, Rahane flashed at one outside the off stump, which was in no need of being touched in any way. It flicked through, took the edge, and he was caught in the slips very nicely. And then 2 balls later, Jadeja was caught behind, and all of a sudden, they'd gone into a state of being 5 wickets down and facing a huge uphill battle. And I think, to summarise, basically, Lyon and Stark succeeded in wrapping up the tail. Lyon ended with 4 wickets, Stark with 2, and India ended up at 234 all out to give Australia a victory by 209 runs. So that's where it ended up, just past what would be the normal lunch break. So it was over very short and sharp. So, Alan, what was your overwhelming impression of the day's play?
I think you summarised it perfectly in terms of that India arrived with hope. If you'd have turned around and said, you 280 runs to win, that's doable. You haven't got to be hyper aggressive in order to get 280 runs in a day. And the initial cotton counter thrust by the bowlers and Boland and Cummings did the early work. It was slow and steady, but really the key to it, I think we said sort of privately before play had even begun, if you could have had 80 for no wicket in that first session, you would take it all day long if you were India. But Australia bowled so well, and they complement each other so well, and they just this feeling of pressure, and then really some self-inflicted wounds by India, and the innings is classic. The classic. There's a couple of starts in there. There's batsmen in the 40s. The shot that Kohli played to edge Boland to Smith. It's a good catch by Smith. It looks like he's going the wrong way at one point, but then takes a decent catch. But it's a mile outside his off stump, and even getting a good stride forward, he's still a mile away from it when he edges it.
Yeah, it was a real sucker ball, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a Kohli of, it seems strange to even say a Kohli of old we would have all applauded as that ball went all the way to the fence for 4. But it was kind of symptomatic of the innings, and it was kind of symptomatic of the way that India were just behind the 8 ball of the game from day one.
Yes.
And they couldn't really. The counter-attack was never hard enough or long enough that they could really ever break free and put Australia on the back foot at any stage in the game. And once Australia have even the remotest sense of the fact that the game is there for the winning, they're a ruthless team.
Yes.
And
It's interesting, isn't it, that neither of these teams had played a test match since they last met at Ahmedabad. And yet Australia came across as being really well prepared for it. And to be honest, India just came across as out of touch. I mean, more of them played in the IPL, obviously, but they didn't really seem ready for it.
I don't think you can. I don't really want to use the IPL as an excuse. That there's lots of players.
Yep.
There's England players who are preparing for the Ashes right now who played in the IPL. A fair smattering of the Australians have been doing it. I think it was the game just really got away from India in the first innings.
Yes.
I think one of the things we'll talk about as we go through all of the Ashes is the aim has to be bowl your opponent out in 90 overs. If you can do that, you really don't have to score that many runs to win. No matter what verb you want to use about how attacking you want to be while you're batting, but that has to be the concept. And the innings of Smith and Head really just they shot out to a lead, and India were just never able to close the gap. It was a combination of India probably playing subpar, Australia playing, they probably, if you went and really asked them, gave them enough gin or truth serum, whichever way you want to call it, and say, would you rather play like that for this game or for the first Ashes test? I think they might turn around and go, well, we've got this lovely trophy that we've got, but we'd rather play, if we could replicate that next week, I think they'd be happy. I think they'd be more than happy.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say Australia, particularly in the bowling side, just played as a unit really well. And I mean, they dropped a few catches. India suffered, I think, because they didn't have Pant, they didn't have Bumrah, which would have certainly improved their status. But my sense is that they probably still wouldn't have won because they just weren't attuned to this game, were they? I mean, to have that opening lineup of Sharma, Gill, Pujara, and Kohli, basically all failing. I mean, yes, Kohli made whatever it was, 48 in the second, and Sharma made 43 in the second innings. But somebody had to go on and make a lot of runs, and I think for the purposes of this match, they can all be seen as having failed.
It's fine margins. It really is.
Yeah.
We're talking about two teams that are really good teams.
Yep.
And you need finals can be awkward. Finals are very rarely great games in any sport. And finals can be over quicker than we care to think about. But I'm pleased. I'm pleased that the Australians played well. I'm pleased that we know what's coming. I did kind of ask the question of Anindo about whether it would cause conversations and to be had about what happens with that India team. And if you're not going to have the conversations now, you're only really putting it off by a couple of years. There's Anindo described it as a golden generation of Indian cricketers. Now, you would assume that there is an assembly line of great test players that are just waiting to be able to take the place. But this is where it'll be really interesting over the course of the next 24 months or so about the IPL experiment.
Yes.
About whether the IPL has changed the assembly line for a great assembly line of T20 players, and what that does in terms of an impact on the test team.
Yep.
But time will tell. We're here to praise the Australians. We're not necessarily here to bury the Indians.
Yeah, fair call. I must say that the person who did perform pretty well for India was Rahane. I thought he played some glorious shots. He really did. and he made what was it 89 or so in the first innings, and 40 something in the second. So
Yeah,
he was the standout batter for India, I think in the process, which, to be honest, surprised me. I was
uh,
I was really looking forward to a sumptuous Gill century with support from Kohli, and it never came.
as a bit of a peek behind the curtain in terms of guerrilla cricket, you're always looking for where there's movement in the field to give you some idea about where the ball has gone.
Mm, mm,
And there were at least 3 or 4 drives by Rahane in the second innings, and today where I didn't know where the ball had gone because no one moved.
no, it was
It,
just
it looked like it was nothing more than a push. Nobody moved, and then the ball hits the
yeah,
boundary sponge, and there was a little bit of like, well, how did that get there?
yep,
Um, no, he played as you would like him to play, but
yep,
in a game like this where the stakes are notionally so high, you need all 11. In the
yes,
same way that in the summer with a compressed time schedule, it's not really about how good your 11 is. It's going to be about how good your 16, 17 man squad's going to be.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it certainly whets the appetite for the Ashes some more. I
Yeah.
thought the Indian bowling attack was serviceable without being brilliant. I thought
Mhm.
the Australian bowlers had, even though Stark in particular was quite wayward in terms of line and length, uh, collectively I thought they had that sense that they were never actually behind the game at all. And runs on the board in the first innings makes a big difference in that regard.
It,
But
it does make a huge difference, but
but when you consider they've also got Hazelwood and Nisa sitting on the sidelines for them to rotate through, uh, I think they're going to be a formidable attack for England to face over the next 5 tests.
I think it's going to be fascinating because you tried to go, well, okay, where would you attack? Who's the weak link? And maybe there's a little bit of benefit because I think England might be the first side to see Boland twice.
Yeah,
Because
probably. Yes, yes.
but he's made. I mean, what an impact in such a short career so far.
Well, there was an
Um,
extraordinary statistic today that I shared from the ABC statistician. For Australian bowlers who've taken more than 25 wickets in Test cricket, the percentage of batsmen they have dismissed for a duck, uh, Boland is over 30%. Nobody else is over 21.5%. It's quite extraordinary the impact he has really early on in his spells and really early on in a batsman's innings.
that that means wickets in clusters,
Yes, yeah,
which we've been Test cricket's been around since 1877, and you can turn around and go, that is a truism that's been true since 1877, is that if you can take wickets in clusters and bunches, you are going to be very, very successful.
yeah.
So delicately poised, delicately balanced. Um, hopefully, it's going to be a long, hot summer, and hopefully, it's going to be um, an intriguing, enthralling match where we can see the push and pull of both sides. We can see ebb and flow, and we can see all results in the balance right the way through to the last day of the last test.
Well, I'm pleased to say that at this stage, the forecast for Friday, the start of the second test, and for Saturday, sorry, the first test, is fine weather. So
Oh,
fingers crossed.
it's going to be hot everywhere in the UK next week, mid 20s or
Yep.
just above, 26, 27 degrees. So I would imagine, not wishing to play the part of backseat groundsman here, win the toss, bat first, plenty of runs.
Yep. Yeah. Well, the Met Office is saying 25 degrees with a touch of cloud on Friday. But yeah, looking very fine. So, my goodness, if we get 3 tests in a row with no rain, that would be extraordinary. So I'd like to say thank you so much for being with me, Al.
No problem.
We're not going to move to Guerilla and Tweeter of the Day today because it's been such a short day.
They all
but
win the prize.
absolutely, it's wonderful to have the company of so many cricket lovers. As ever, though, we would love your support, albeit the smallest amount helps. So if you go to patreon.com/Guerilla Cricket, you can contribute there. And please, if you enjoy this, click like and subscribe and share it with all and sundry, and let them know that we'll be back on Friday at 10 to 11 for the first test of the Ashes series. And we are looking forward to that like nothing else. It's exciting.
Should be good.
Thank you so
Should
much,
be good.
Al.
Thanks, Jess.
Good night, all.
And now it's time for Guerilla Roundup. They'll let you know what